Latin Brocards, fourth video. Facta non verba. Facta non verba. The Latin Brocard facta non verba literally means deeds, not words. It emphasizes that actions carry greater value and credibility than mere statements or promises. In a legal context, it reminds judges and practitioners that evidence and concrete acts prevail over verbal claims or intentions. In politics, the maxim is often invoked to demand accountability, urging leaders to demonstrate results rather than deliver rhetoric. In everyday language, facta non verba functions as a moral principle that values authenticity, consistency, and integrity in human conduct. It underscores the belief that one's character and commitment are revealed through tangible actions rather than through eloquence or persuasion. This timeless expression, both succinct and powerful, continues to serve as an ethical standard across law, governance, and daily life. Example sentences. The judge invoked facta non verba to emphasize that justice must rest on proven facts and concrete evidence, not on persuasive argumentation. In her research, the scholar adopted the principle of facta non verba, ensuring that her conclusions were grounded in verifiable data rather than theoretical assumptions. Citizens appealed to facta non verba when evaluating the government's performance, insisting that genuine progress be shown through measurable achievements. He believed in facta non verba, proving his loyalty through consistent actions rather than empty promises. Pecunia non OLET. Pecunia non OLET. The Latin brocard pecunia non OLET literally means money does not smell. Originating from a remark attributed to Emperor Vespasian, it conveys the idea that the value of money is not diminished by its source. In a legal context, the maxim refers to the principle that lawful currency retains its legitimacy regardless of how it was earned, provided it is not tainted by illegality. Politically, pecunia non OLET often highlights the moral ambiguity of financial power, especially when governments or institutions accept funds from questionable sources for pragmatic reasons. In everyday language, it is used ironically to comment on human tolerance toward wealth, suggesting that moral concerns often fade in the presence of financial gain. The expression thus encapsulates both realism and cynicism, revealing society's enduring tension between ethics and economics. Example sentences. The court upheld the tax payment, affirming pecunia non OLET. The state cannot reject lawful revenue based on the origin of the payer's wealth. The economist cited pecunia non OLET to illustrate how fiscal policies often prioritize revenue generation over moral considerations. Critics accuse the administration of following pecunia non OLET by accepting donations from corporations with dubious ethical records. When offered a high-paying job by a controversial company, he shrugged and said, "Pecunia non OLET." Money, after all, has no smell. Non in solo pane vivit homo. Non in solo pane vivit homo. The Latin Brocard non in solo pane vivit homo literally means man does not live by bread alone. Rooted in biblical tradition, it conveys the idea that human existence requires more than material sustenance. In legal or philosophical context, it underscores the notion that justice and dignity extend beyond economic survival, encompassing moral and spiritual well-being. Politically, the maxim is invoked to remind governments that citizens' welfare cannot be reduced to material prosperity alone. Social justice, education, and cultural values are equally vital. In everyday life, non in solo pane vivit homo highlights the human need for love, empathy, and respect, elements that nourish the soul as food sustains the body. The expression thus affirms a holistic vision of humanity, balancing material necessity with emotional and ethical fulfillment. Example sentences. In her paper on social development, the scholar invoked non in solo pane vivit homo to argue that human fulfillment requires both material security and moral purpose. The minister concluded his speech with the non in solo pane vivit homo, stressing that national progress must also be measured in education and civic values. Human rights advocates often cite non in solo pane vivit homo to emphasize that true justice includes dignity, compassion, and access to culture, not merely economic welfare. After reaching financial success, he realized the meaning of non in solo pane vivit homo. Wealth alone could not replace affection and understanding. Cum grano salis. Cum grano salis. The Latin brocard cum grano salis literally means with a grain of salt. It conveys the idea of approaching something with caution, discernment, and common sense. The expression reminds individuals to evaluate information critically and not accept statements or appearances at face value. In legal context, it encourages judges and lawyers to interpret evidence or testimony prudently, recognizing possible exaggerations or biases. Politically, cum grano salis warns citizens and analysts to assess public speeches and media narratives with measured skepticism. In philosophical and academic settings, it denotes intellectual prudence, the habit of questioning assumptions before drawing conclusions. In everyday life, the maxim serves as practical advice to think carefully, avoid impulsive judgments, and maintain perspective. Ultimately, cum grano salis promotes wisdom through moderation and reasoned reflection. Example sentences. The magistrate advised the jury to consider the witness's statement cum grano salis, acknowledging that personal motives might have influenced the testimony. Voters learn to interpret campaign promises cum grano salis, aware that enthusiasm often exceeds the reality of governance. The professor urged students to read historical sources cum grano salis, reminding them that every account reflects its author's perspective. He accepted his colleagues' advice cum grano salis, choosing to reflect before making any major decision. Nulla questio. Nulla questio. The Latin Brocard nulla questio literally means no question or an unquestionable issue. An unquestionable issue. It signifies a situation or matter that is clear, settled, and beyond dispute. In legal context, it is used when facts or arguments are so evident that no further examination or discussion is necessary, as in cases where evidence is conclusive or liability is admitted. In politics, nulla questio can indicate broad consensus on a policy or moral stance that transcends partisan debate. In philosophical or academic discourse, it marks the acceptance of a principle so well established that it requires no additional proof. In everyday conversation, the phrase expresses certainty or finality when something is obvious or universally agreed upon. Ultimately, nulla questio conveys intellectual closure, denoting the point at which doubt or controversy ceases to exist. Example sentences. After unanimous parliamentary approval, the minister described the reform as nulla questio, symbolizing rare cross-party agreement. Given the overwhelming evidence, the judge declared nulla questio. The defendant's guilt was beyond reasonable doubt. In contemporary ethics, the scholar noted that human dignity is nulla questio, a foundational value no longer subject to debate. When she saw the results, she smiled and said, "Nulla questio." The decision had clearly been the right one.